To this day. To this day.
Rich people don't sleep 8 hours a day.
That's stupid. Use your common sense.
What up? I am Bushido Spirit. I have here Mo with me.
Yes, you do.
Yes. And today we're talking about When They See Us, the Ava DuVernay miniseries. And it's about the Central Park 5. We're going to go ahead and tackle that. Before we even get into the review, remember to like, comment, subscribe. Also, the notification icon let you know when we drop videos. We do a lot of reviews now. So be sure to look out for the next one. But yeah, so we're gonna start off with we're gonna talk about, I guess, what are our thoughts going into this? Like, what were we thinking of? What were you thinking of specifically? Not we.
They said Netflix was garbage, Bush. They said Disney Plus was killing the platform. They said Ava DuVernay wouldn't be eaten after the Wrinkle in Time movie came out and got terrible reviews.
Trash.
They said it was trash. So when I went into it, what do you think I thought, Bush, before I saw that trailer? I said, Ava DuVernay, you made Selma, damn it. You made Selma, damn it. That was a classic. You made the 14th. That was a hot.
I like 13.
I was like, you made. I was like, you made the 14th. I was like, that's a highly informative piece of documentary media, right?
Yeah.
And then what happened was I was like, it's about black people. This shit about to be heat, nigga. And then I watched the trailer and I was right. It looked pretty cool.
It looked good, yeah.
I mean, the big question we kind of had going in, and by me, I mean the coons that we make podcasts with most of the time. They said some shit like, oh my God, it's another piece of struggle media. I hate struggles, man. Why we always got to show black people sad and shit? Why can't we be dentists?
He said, why can't we be dentists? Why can't we be vets like mom, man?
Exactly, man. Why we always got to be doing crazy? Why can't we hang out with the white kids? Why can't we party, then?
I just want to be regular black, man. Not struggle black.
Exactly. And like, I'll be honest with you guys, I didn't know anything about the Central Park 5, man. I didn't know anything about that. I knew that Trump said some crazy shit about black people back in the day. I knew more about the Clintons than I knew anything about Trump's history, to be honest with you. Most of the stuff I knew about Trump and like what got him hated by the public was, one, he was a white 1%er. I knew, two, that he would inherit old money from his daddy.
Yep.
And also knew he had that whole thing where he doesn't have to pay tax for Wall Street. And I was like, that's enough reason to hate this nigga. And then they show his face in the trailer. I'm like, damn, this nigga sucks.
Yeah, and
super sucks.
And he treated his black tenants wrong, you know. So yeah. So I mean, fuck Trump.
Exactly, and that's the mindset I went into it with. I was like, this looks good. And to be honest with you, I trust Ava DuVernay to tell a captivating story about black people, and especially pay respect to something that actually happened. You know what I mean? With real people.
I mean, she does pretty well when there's like I cannot talk.
Biopics.
Well, yeah, biopic. I guess is the easiest way to say it. Biopics.
Yeah, you're talking about like biographical media. Is that what you're talking about? Like,
yeah. That
makes sense. Yeah, she's great at that. Yeah, she's really, really good at that.
I mean, yeah, that fantasy Wrinkle in Time shit. That was trash. I mean, I haven't seen Queen Sugar, but people say Queen Sugar is pretty good. And got a lot of black people in that too, so she's good at directing.
I heard some
black
great shit
people.
about that.
So,
yeah.
And you know, acting in this is top notch. But yeah, that's pretty. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, you know, even though I didn't even watch The Wrinkle in Time because I heard the reviews, and it just wasn't some shit that I was interested into. I was never interested into that type of film, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciated it for what it was. I was like, okay, so we're putting black people at the forefront of a major live action Disney movie for children. That's cool. I dig that, like conceptually, you know.
Yeah, shit just look crazy, man. It's like, look like crazy as hell, man. Fucking butterflies and shit. I just wasn't really fucking with it. But this, this right here, I was digging it, man. And this is the perfect time to put this film here. It's the perfect time. You know, Trump is the president, so we can bash him some more. I mean, people don't really care, but I mean, it's just good to inform other people on how much of a piece of shit he is. You know.
Yes.
But yeah, like this is the perfect time to put this film here. We still having issues with the cops. police brutality, all of that. And like I said, this is perfect time. And that woman that's in the film, Linda Fairstein,
She's still alive, right?
Yeah, she's still alive. She makes crime novels. And
Yeah,
there people are
yeah.
boycotting her right now. She had to step down from her charities. She was on the board of
Yeah.
non-profit companies.
To be honest, this is like the best climate to release something like
Oh
this,
yeah,
because
yeah.
just in this one year, we've had 2 pieces of like documentary media, like slash this happened, now you found out about it, but it's really been happening for years type stuff. Like we've had the R. Kelly thing, and we've also had the Michael Jackson. And we know culturally those things had massive waves, even if they were like kind of short term. If you really think about like the attention span of the
Man, fuck
internet and
that
mass
Michael
media and
Jackson
stuff
movie,
like
by
that.
the way.
Oh, I mean, sure, I don't really
He said
care
sure.
about yeah, but all I'm saying is that it
Yeah.
incited conversation, and to
Yeah.
think that like a biopic like this, right, can be the vehicle for like real conversation and change is pretty cool. And for the most part, we'll get into it later on, but we know how it ends for the boys. But we know that there's ongoing consequences that people really wish would affect the people that put them in this mess to begin with. You know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah.
So let's get right into it here. I think we talked enough about the film here. Let's get right into it. Let's start off with the first episode. Give us that quick synopsis, man. By the way, spoilers for any of you smooth brains that came in here thinking that there weren't going to be any spoilers. You've been fooled. This is not spoiler free at all. This is all spoilers. And I mean, I don't have to. I shouldn't have to say that for a fucking biopic, but you got to, man. You got to.
Yeah.
You got to.
It looks like the newspaper spoiled this shit 20 years ago.
Like, oh my God, you ruined it again. I did not know. Like, yeah, come on, man. Come on.
What do you mean the sky is blue? Fuck you, man.
All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, start off with the first episode, man. What are we looking at here?
The first episode details where the 5, the Central Park 5 were before the actual incident happened. And the idea is that everybody has their individual lives. You're introduced to their family, or at least like one person in their life that they really care about. And eventually it leads to them going to the Central Park sort of gathering thing that happens. They didn't know what was happening, but they knew a whole bunch of people were gathering, partying, and stuff was happening, right? When they actually...
One thing I want to point out that this shit happens pretty quickly. They get to the park I think that's right off the bat. They go into the park. Like I felt, I like that. That I felt good about that, because usually they try to linger on the family aspect of it. But yeah, I fuck with that. Yeah, so you can continue.
Yeah, so they're doing basic setup. They're showing you the regular world of the Central Park 5 before they became the Central Park 5.
Yeah.
You're introduced to all of them individually. It's not like some group meeting where they all knew each other. The first thing they try and illustrate is these 5 did not know each other. They definitively went with their own groups of friends or by themselves to the Central Park stuff.
Yes.
And only once they were arrested did they actually meet each other. So they go to Central Park. They end up meeting with a massive swarm of people that they don't really know. And then what happens is that them themselves do not actually get involved in some stuff that goes down. But there are some bad people at the park that are throwing hands and shit. You see what I'm saying? People are fighting. People are just like knocking bicyclists off their bikes and hitting them. And that's reason enough to get people's attention as to bad stuff happening at Central Park.
It's crazy. Right? Something like that similar happened a couple days ago. Not a couple days ago, but like 2 or 3 weeks ago in Baltimore. What is sort of the same thing? Kids wild and knocking bicyclists off the bicycle and shit.
Yeah.
So I was like, it was interesting that happened. Like, I don't know.
At a similar time. Yeah. Like you connected the pieces. I know what you mean. When you see something in a piece of media and then you start seeing it everywhere, like, what the fuck happened, man? Like,
and there were people calling for the death penalty. Like, what are these Negro hoodlums doing out here? No responsibility.
For throwing them off bicycles?
Yeah. People were saying, like, one YouTuber named Salty Cracker, who's a salty cracker. He was. He was I was in the name.
Hold up, is that name unironic? Did he call himself that because he just wanted to be salty cracker, or does he consider himself a salty cracker?
I don't know. It's the perfect name for him in all his content.
Okay. Either way, I appreciate it.
He was like, the cops should lock them up forever, man. Like, they're hoodlums. Look at them run around. Yeah. So it's like, it's not illegal to run, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the 5 of them independently find themselves in Central Park that night. And what ends up happening is that yeah, we see people already causing trouble. There's a little bit of tension happening. Cops show up, and your first assumption is, damn, so like they're gonna get roped up in something that they haven't remotely been involved in. You think, oh yeah, they're gonna get arrested and attacked, and they make sure to let you know that the cops are the enemy. Absolutely, you see what I'm saying? The cops do things like they call them animal. They hit one of the kids across the face, leaving bruised. And I think that's one of the youngest kids too. He was about like 15, right? Maybe
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
15,
yeah. They
14,
was
around
fucking
that
that kid
age.
up. Yeah, he was. I think it was like 14, 15.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, so what happens is that when the cops show up, they arrest four of them. Like not five, they arrest four. They take them to the police station for an interrogation about a case they have no real understanding of. They're like, "Oh yeah, they must have just took me in for something I didn't do because these people were wilding." You
yeah,
know what I mean? And they make a point to remind you that white people don't understand the word wilding, man. They don't get it. You know
yeah.
what I mean?
And I like how and they do a great job of showing how they weaponize that word and completely change what that word meant to attack these kids. So that was brilliant how they
Yeah.
did that. Yeah. So
Yeah, yeah. So individually, what happens is when they actually do get to the office, apparently, I think she's like the leader of the sex crimes division of the NYPD. Am I correct?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and she apparently has a point to prove. Like she makes a clear note of this many cases of sexual assault have happened this year and no arrests have been made. And it's one of those things where it's not necessarily you yourself did something wrong. It's that other people may potentially have done something wrong and you just unfortunately were the one that they used to prove a point. You see what
yeah.
I'm saying?
That's I mean that's the
And
black
what
experience in general as far as in
exactly.
these inner city communities. It's like they
Yeah,
it's like so much crime going on that people that aren't doing crimes get caught up into that, and they think everybody that's in
exactly.
those areas are criminals. So
Yeah. So what happens that once we get here is that these boys are isolated. They're isolated inside these interrogation rooms by officers that don't have their best wishes in mind. Out of them, there are three African American kids, and one of them is actually Afro Latina. I think he might be Puerto Rican. I'm not too
I
sure.
think like Puerto Rican or
And
some shit. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And what happens is that each of them are being convinced that the person in the opposite room that they've never heard of is trying to conspire against them and lying about them. They're like, "Oh yeah, what's happening is they're saying this about you, Antoine. They're saying this about you, like blah blah blah." You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
And yeah. And then what happens is one of the kids spills the beans and says a name. I think they say there's this guy named Tron that was there that night, and they bring him in for interrogation because they consider him a suspect for this supposed rape case that happens at Central Park. Apparently, that very same night, at that very same point, a young woman that went out for a run got raped that night, and then they
yeah,
think that one of these kids are the people that did all of them. You know what I'm saying? So when they go in to get the Tron dude, like Antoine, like they end up finding out that there's a friend with him around named Corey, and they ask him, "Do you want to go to the office or something like that? Do you want to go to the station to be with your friend?" And they said, "You'll be right back." And
wait,
while
wait,
he
wait, hold on,
stays,
hold on, hold
while
on, hold on, hold on. I think you that was Yusuf. So Yusuf and Corey. Yusuf is the tall, dark skinned dude with like the high top. I think that's the Yusuf. Corey, not
yo, you're
Corey. I think
right.
Tron is the dude that has the father that's there with him at the police station. His mother, like he has both
Yeah,
his
you're
parents there.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. I'm messing up. I'm messing up. Yeah. So the point I'm trying to make is that Corey was never involved. You see what I'm saying?
yeah,
Corey
he
was
was.
never
Yeah,
involved. Three of them were brought in, and a fourth one was eventually brought in. And the only reason Corey's even in the police station is because he thinks his mom, like he's trying to do right by his friend. You see what I'm saying? He's trying to do right by his friend. All of them are like not given food, not given an option to go home. They think they're gonna be arrested forever, and they think that the person in the next room that they don't know is snitching on them. And eventually, all of them are convinced that they're gonna admit to being there that night and committing the crime that they didn't commit, and having it be recorded as evidence before any of their family members actually even show up. Right?
yeah,
And by the time each of their family members show up, you get the appropriate response. They're like, "What the hell happened? What the fuck? You can't do this. These kids and blah 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 blah." But the two most interesting cases I would say is the case of Tron that you mentioned, where like his father shows up and his father's like, "What happened? What's going on?" And then the situation is that one of the cops takes him outside when his dad figures out what the hell's going on, and he threatens to tell the people that he's working for about the fact that about the fact that he was arrested at one point because he's withholding the information from his employer
Yeah,
and that could get him fired.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
and pretty much every parent is busy, and I like how they showed that. They showed that these are people that aren't necessarily they aren't like middle class. They don't have a lot of money, so they struggle to get
Yeah,
to these places. So, like one of the
exactly. Yeah,
reasons the kids were left alone is because the family members had to work. You know, they barely making ends meet.
yeah,
So they got to show up for work, and they can't stay at the police station for long periods of times. And it shows how how the system works overall, and how being poor, how how all this stuff like affects everything. So I mean, I don't know if I explained it properly, but I like how they showed that the parents couldn't really be there because they had to work, and how important keeping a job was. And also, which they bring up later in the film, later episodes, with the father having like a criminal record. Um,
yeah,
so yeah, they first introduced that with his father. His father tells the cop about, hey, I gotta. No, the cop brings it to him to make him force his son to talk to him. So, but yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting the way they linked everything
yeah.
together.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think the thing that they do in this show that I think is really good is, despite having considerably a pretty big central cost, right? They do commit to every one of the characters and their arcs, and
Hello.
it's very much about his dad. That's kind of being selfish and kind of being a coward. And even though he wished his best, he's making the situation worse. It's
Yeah,
about that relationship and like
yeah.
whether it's going to disintegrate or whether it's going to
That
materialize
that
into
shit
something
that shit was
substantial.
interesting to me because he was on some respectability politics. We talk about that all the time about pull your
Yeah,
pants up, just do what they say, and everything will be fine. And I like that
yeah,
was there, and it it's so many statements made in this movie. Like they attack the economic system, social, they attack a lot of stuff in here. So I
yeah,
fuck with
yeah.
it.
I
So
think I think one of my favorites, surprisingly, was the whole Raymond situation. Raymond is somebody that found his way back into prison, even though he came out relatively early. If you think about it, you
oh
know,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Raymond is this person that they very do a great job of establishing as this person. Like he hustled in prison, man. He hustled his way through, and by the time he was out, he tried to make a legitimate life for himself, but they made it hard for him. You see what I'm saying? Like they make that whole commentary for him where it's like you got one foot in and you got one foot out. You know what I mean? You're never fully free. You're still partially in prison. Like you've got that whole like sex offender thing attached to your name despite being a kid when they got you. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And I think that was a crazy part of it. But actually that brings us to episode 2, right? That brings us to episode 2.
Wait. How did episode? I think yeah, you might be. Wait, how did episode one end? I'm thinking. Uh,
Episode 1 ends with them having to go to trial. Like it's them. It's what happens is episode 1 ends with them being in a room and apologizing to each other because they find out who they've been snitching on the entire time and that nobody's actually guilty because all of them were interrogated to the point where they had to snitch on each other.
okay, so yeah, we didn't finish that one out yet. We didn't talk about how they all admitted how they all told on each other
Yeah,
and
yeah,
how
yeah.
Corey
So what
was
happens
involved.
is,
Yeah.
yeah. So they don't give these kids food. They don't let them sleep. They don't even give them a phone call for their parents. They don't know what the hell is happening. So what essentially happens is that they're forced into a situation where they're given the only option of lie on these people that have quote unquote lied on you, but they haven't. You know what I'm saying? They haven't lied. They don't even know each other, but they're convincing them. The police are saying if you say you do know these people and frame them, you can go home. And these kids just want to go home. They keep pushing the
Yeah,
idea. These
yeah,
kids
yeah. They
just
keep
want to go
pushing that.
home.
Yeah, yeah.
They just want to go home.
I want to, yeah, and
And
especially the one that was super young, the 14-year-old. It's like, damn, they getting beat
yeah,
on, and they don't know
yeah,
who, like you mentioned, they don't know who any of these other kids are. They never met them before, and the only
yeah,
reason they know their names is because the cops told them their names and showed them pictures.
yeah,
So the cops are just kind of coercing these kids into telling on each other, and nobody is
exactly.
admitting that they did the crime. They're all saying that the other guy did it, which is interesting.
Yeah, and you got to think about it this way. Like the situation is bad, man. Like I think the youngest one of them gets like they get hit. They get like punched out. Like I think I can't remember what it was, but like he gets something, like the cop gets something and just hits the kid across the face with it.
Yeah, that's when
And then
the cops
he
were
just
doing the raid and he hit him in the face.
exactly when they're doing the raid. And the thing is, they don't give him nothing over his eye to protect it. And not only do they do that, they use the fact that the cop hit him as part of the case. They say
Yeah.
that the woman that he didn't scratched his eye.
Yeah.
And that's what ends up happening. They use the thing that the cop did to him as evidence that he was there that night, and they try and frame him. And that's the youngest one of all of them.
Yep.
You know. And the case, of course, as you can imagine, the case is very thin because even though they can frame these kids ven and ver, when they have to take that case to court, it doesn't. It's almost non-existent. So that takes us to the next episode. You know what I mean? The next episode is Corey's been waiting all night. They each independently have their lawyers and they have to go to court. And apparently, what happens is that the connective tissue for the case they're gonna take to court against those 4 kids that didn't do anything, right? Is that there was a 5th man, and the 5 of them did it together, and Corey was the missing piece. Corey, the person that was only there that night because of his friend and him not wanting to leave him alone, got roped into a case and pressed for charges for something that he never did.
Yeah, he tied everything together because it was convoluted as fuck. It was a mess. Each person was saying that the other guy did it, and he was the only one to say that I helped, and he helped it too.
Yeah.
And so yeah, he kind of roped everything. He put everything together. He made it somewhat reasonable, I guess, legitimate. Yeah. So yeah, it was just fucked up. He like you said, he only came there because he was with his friend, his buddy.
Yeah. And you gotta think about this. Like the bulk of the episode is the case. You see what I'm saying? It's the case. It's what's happening, and it's interesting how it kind of plays out. It's like it's on par with any of the finest law scenes we've seen in any law dedicated show. Like, you know, people are like, oh yeah, this show is a show about lawyers. Like this show is it's trying to make a commentary on the prison system. It's trying to make commentary on white America and how they treat the impoverished class, the black class, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it just Ava DuVernay is just so strong as a director. She tells this story through and through. She commits to every stage of it, and having an entire episode dedicated to like the legal process of getting them in prison is just is like fascinating. She's just so good at it.
Yeah, that was one of the best. Yeah, like each part. Yeah. That's a good point because each part, like it, because the first part was like a police procedural, like.
Yeah.
Then the other part was like a court case. Yeah. So I mean it.
And the first episode and the like the 3rd and 4th episode are like prison. Like, movie shows.
Yeah. So yeah, I like how it was split up. But yeah, this was a real good episode. One of my favorite episodes of the whole series.
Absolutely, yeah. Not to say the first episode wasn't strong. The first episode established just about everything we needed to know. We understood the interpersonal relationships of our protagonists. We understood why they were there that night, and we understand their alibi to why they were innocent. But then we also kind of see this case materialize using every little beast of evidence that we kind of see in the first episode against them. You know what I mean?
And this is really the episode where like Linda is. This is like the first episode was the episode that made people be like, we gotta boycott this bitch. This bitch evil. Like, cause she was really pushing, despite everybody saying that she had no case. She continued to push it. She avoided obvious issues with their stories, and she continued to push. And she was doing this all in the name of the victim, which was completely disingenuous. She was looking to get a leg up, like get a better position and whatnot. Like,
imagine being white and talking about I need a leg up though. Like, that's wild. Yeah, I was thinking about, like, I think a bulk of this episode is like introducing the lawyers as well, like the people that are in charge of defending them, and you have to consider these people are like poor. They can't afford like the top notch like lawyers and attorneys that like the police department can. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what ends up happening is they go into the background of each individual lawyer, and they keep going back to how one of them has only been like a wedding lawyer, you know, a divorce lawyer. You see what I'm saying? Like somebody that's only dealt with relationships and has no real standing in defending somebody against like a rape charge, you know?
You got one that was a cop before and is now a lawyer. Nobody did a really big case, and they had one legitimate.
One of them is like one of them's like some African like a community like, dude.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is crazy. You know what I'm saying? And
there was another lawyer there too that we didn't really see this episode. Like, he just showed up at the beginning. like this, like the short fat guy was like, "You got a beautiful family." Yeah.
Oh my god.
that
Yeah.
motherfucker disappeared.
Also, there's the white one that also has what's called a previous relationship with the person that's supposed to be
The prosecutor.
yeah, representing the victim and stuff, the prosecutor. And I thought that was so interesting. The way the episode kind of built the suspense of are they gonna get arrested, are they not? Even though we know that for the rest of the series to be the rest of the series, they have to get arrested.
Yeah.
We still believe it, man. We still believe
Yeah.
there's some tension here. There's a back and
Yeah,
forth.
that shit was crazy. That was still tension there, even though we knew the outcome. It was like, oh shit, like what's going?
Exactly.
Because it baffles me how how bad the justice system is for them to, for the law, because lawyers did a pretty good job just based off the episode. Like I haven't seen the actual case, but if what we saw in the TV show was accurate, then like they did a pretty good job. So it just it baffles me.
There's two things. I think every episode kind of has an idea that it's trying to execute. I mean, these ideas obviously overlap, and they're not necessarily as clear cut as the what the episode is gonna be about. Because every episode's super focused, as we addressed before. But the main thing that the first episode kind of seek to establish is their children, their kids. No matter how you frame the story and what happens, this is happening to people that were children. They were very young. You know what I'm saying? They were very young. A lot of them knew nothing about sex, and one of them didn't even know what rape was, but they convinced him he was the one that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then the second episode is very much. And the second episode was very much about this case seems inevitable. Any rational person should be able to look at this and see they have no legs. Their case has no legs.
Yeah.
They couldn't have been there that night, and there's no evidence. Also, and even as obvious as this thing seems, it went against,
Yeah, and they also made sure to play up the media's part in this whole thing too. They did. This is the episode where they showed the Trump
stuff, right?
Yeah, and at the beginning of the episode, they have this writer writing out like an article for the case, and he just paints these kids as the most evil, wicked and villainous people, like a pack of wolves, and they showed them use the word wild and like wolves.
So they made me so mad, dude. They made me so mad. The part where like the mother's just trying to get somewhere with her kid, and she's like, "Did you find out about the fact that they're doing this?" And I'm like, "Bruh,
yeah,
you guys are monsters. You're just monsters, man. Like you're just disgusting, dude." I don't know.
Yeah, they did a good job of showing how like the media was like this mob mentality. They surround you with like
a bunch of vultures, man.
Yeah. Vultures and shit. Yeah. But I mean, I don't think there's anything else. I mean, the episode. I guess the episode ends.
We have the ending. We have the ending.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I mean, the ending is very important. Like, we know everybody's got it bad. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's got it bad. These kids are going to be in a juvenile detention center for however many years before being sent to prison like everybody else. The one that went straight to prison after they got convicted for a crime they never committed was Corey. Corey was 16 and went straight to prison.
Yeah.
He went straight
to
prison.
Up.
Straight to just... Yeah, he went straight to jail. And we don't really see any of that. And I think that's one of the strongest pieces of directing until way later. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so,
to even hold that off, because he had the worst story. So some other lesser people would try to do that shit straight away.
Yo, Push. This shit is so fucking fire. You know what? I'm about to say it, and you're gonna know why. The fourth episode is all about solitary confinement. They literally isolated him from the rest of the cast until that fourth episode. They only mention him. They never show you a frame of that nigga. And another thing that makes the whole shit so fire is notice how the guy that plays Corey as a kid is the same actor he is by the end. They changed the actor for everybody else, but they keep him by the end. That shit is so fucking.
That is good directing. Yeah.
Bro, Ava, you nasty with it, man.
Yeah.
Shit disgusting. Yeah, let's get to episode 3. Episode 3 is kind of the time skip episode. It's the episode where they kind of flash through the years of phone calls that everybody's getting. You know what I'm saying? And interactions. And slowly how everybody is eventually getting out of prison and serving their time and losing all of these years of their youth, their actual childhood, right?
Yep.
Before being freed. And slowly their sort of rehabilitation. You know what I'm saying? That's sort of like that, like if you can even really call it that. You see what I'm saying? Them like reintegrating into society, being like, oh, we gotta get a job, there's convicts, blah blah blah, and
Yeah.
everybody has their independent art. I think Bush should be. I'd appreciate if you go into some of the independent stories that they try and tell in this episode, like what their conflict is and what's happening for each of the guys off the prison.
Well, I think you mentioned with Raymond that he found it extremely difficult to get a job, and they kind of touch on the issue with trying to rehabilitate these convicts, these people that just get out of prison because they can't communicate with other convicts, and he's a registered sex offender, so he can't work with children at all, and it just makes it extremely hard. Not to mention that his father got like remarried and has has a stepmother in the house with all the kids running around, and everybody sees them as sex offender because they've been convicted. So
Dude, that shit hurts every single time. Every single time a woman in his life drops, and this is why you're a rapist. I'm like, bro, I didn't do it.
like
You know
that's
what I mean?
yeah, like it's so disgusting because even their own family members are starting to believe it. Like, hey, because people, despite what people say, people still trust the justice system. They believe
Yeah.
that they convict the right people. So
It's just so bad. The fact that
yeah,
the fact that they'll use that against somebody, you know what I mean? Like the fact that like you have all these interactions, you house them under your roof, you still do this, and it's like if you believe they did it, why are they here? You know what I mean? Like it's like it feels like people that even don't believe it, right? Are willing to just use that to hurt you because they know it will hurt. And I'm like, if
yeah,
you know you're doing this because it will hurt him, why would you ever say something so disgusting? You know what I mean? Why would you ever say something so disgusting to somebody?
yeah. That
You
shit is
know?
terrible, man. And it just shows them trying to piece together a normal life. With Raymond, he like I said, he can't get a job. He was talking to this girl while he was in prison. He gets out and he meets her again. So he's
Yeah.
he's slowly putting the pieces together.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, he had to deal drugs because he wasn't making a lot of money. He wanted to have a better life for him and his girl and move in with her and stuff like that. But his check wasn't big enough, so he started selling drugs, and he gets arrested again and gets put right back into prison. And it was a very sad ending to how they did that. He
Yeah.
talks. He's like, what he says? He said something to his father. What he says? He
He's
said,
like then he says you're never really free, something like that. You always have one foot in there and one foot out there, and it's like they still got you or something like that.
yeah. And when he goes back in the final time, he's like, "I'm sorry, pops." And his father's like, "I tried," and I think his father says, "That's okay, son. Just try again." I guess when he gets back out,
Yeah,
I mean that was a touching
that's so
moment.
that's so fire, dude. Like I was expecting it to be at least. It's funny there was a technically a deadbeat, but even the deadbeat was around. You know what I mean? Like
Oh yeah,
he
we'll
did
get
an
to
awful thing
that.
while he was in prison, but he was still there. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
the whole thing that the we'll get into that in a second. But I think another one that I found really interesting was the one of Yusuf Salam. Like
Oh
Yusuf's
yeah.
whole thing is that like he found faith in prison, the fact that he needed something to keep him going, you know what I mean? And he becomes like there's a whole Muslim community inside the what's it called, the prison, and how he kind of finds his own group of people and that kind of keeps him safe and focused and has something to dedicate himself to like even when his family isn't around. And there's like these touching moments with like his mother where they share prayer and stuff, and she reminds him of like there's always more than just this. You see what I'm saying? There's more than just what you're doing right now and what you're living right now. And as long as you
Yeah.
have some direction, you're okay. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, they did a good job with all the boys. Yeah. Also the next person. Let's talk about Tron. Antron. So yeah, that's the deadbeat dad thing. So we didn't mention it, but during episode 2, I guess the father felt guilty because he sort of convinced his son to lie in the first episode, and he was haunted by that. So during the court case, he kind of just bowed out. He just stopped showing up, and he just left Tron and his mother alone to go to the court. And he kind of shows up like near the end of episode 2, and they put him on the stand, and he kind of fucks up, and and he just disappears. And when Tron gets out, he comes to home and he sees his father there, and his father, like, he's been gone for a long time, but he comes back because he got some sort of illness. some sort of cancer or some shit like that, and the mother brings him back in, and he still hates his father. He has this animosity towards his father because he left him when they needed him the most, and so he's dealing with that. And he also gets a girlfriend, and like we talked about, she brought up, he was, I guess he was going back to school, and he was saving up money, all the pennies that he had from his job. And she was mad.
And he wouldn't spend money on her.
Yeah. She got mad about that and called him a rapist, so that shit didn't end well. But I mean, eventually,
I think they also mentioned, isn't he the first one that moves out? He's the first one to move out of New York.
Is he? I mean, I guess that's at the end. I don't know. I don't know if he did it during. I don't know. But yeah. So yeah, I mean, him and his mother had a talk. He eventually embraces his father because his father's very ill, and he sort of had no choice. So he like, fuck it, and that's pretty much it with his storyline. And I think the last one is it's the youngest one. I forgot his fucking name. What is his name? I'm trying to remember his name. But he gets out, and his sister drives him back home, and he doesn't.
It's Kevin, right? It's Kevin.
It's Kevin. Yes, Kevin. It's Kevin. You're right. He doesn't. I mean, they do talk about how he was lonely because Yusuf had found the Muslims, because him and Yusuf was together in prison. I mean, in juvenile detention center or whatnot, and Yusuf finds the Muslim Brotherhood, so he's kind of alone. He doesn't really have anybody. So they had this special conversation. I said special. Great conversation with his family at the table about him trying to find his own thing, to do while he's in there. But other than that, he didn't really. I mean, I would say that his story was the weakest one because they didn't really show him do much. He got out, and he met up with Yusuf. So I mean, is there anything else that he did? I don't think he did anything else other than that. Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
Nah, I think that was the bulk of it.
Yeah, that was it for him. He didn't really do much. So yeah, that was pretty much episode 3 in a nutshell. Just showing the lives, how their lives are affected by being sex offenders. And they went to this one, what was that thing, the seminar or whatnot, where they had to admit that they were sex offenders or some shit. They had to admit to the wrongdoing. Yeah. But yeah, I
will say one thing about Kevin's story that was kind of interesting was the whole story that his sister tells him about how people are affected by prison and how they feel guilty about enjoying themselves knowing someone they love is locked up and can't enjoy it.
Yeah, that's the talk they had. Yeah, I completely missed over. Yeah, but yeah, that was right. Yeah, you're right about that. That was a good. That was brilliant right there. They were showing how everybody was affected, and they kind of did it with everybody too. Yeah, now that I think about it, yeah, because you're right, because the mothers couldn't really get jobs, because their kids are so famous because of the case. So
exactly.
They would get work, but they would get fired from work because people didn't want to deal with them because their sons are famous for raping this woman. So It didn't just affect them; it affected everybody around them, and that's really what this episode tries to draw.
Yeah,
the grandma passed away. Yeah, so I mean that's episode 3.
This show is so good, man, and I feel like this is why I keep saying. I feel like, and I know you might feel this way too. Do you feel like if Ava DuVernay, a black woman, wasn't directing this, she'd focus that much about the women in their lives? Do you think she did? Do you think potentially a male director would have put this much focus on the women in these boys' lives and how they affect them?
I don't know.
All of them.
I mean,
the sisters, the mothers, you know what I mean?
I don't think they would, because it's something that could easily be overlooked. Because even because the whole thing with his sister, with Kevin's sister, that could have been easily left out. But she added
everything with episode 4, man, with Corey, everything.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh. And the funny thing is that it's so much in here. There's so much meat on the bone, but none of it feels like it drags or it feels forced. It's all natural and
It's
organic.
just so good, man. It's
yeah,
just so. This is like, and this is what I mean. People are always like, I hate struggle media. I hate when black people are shown suffering. I hate it, man. Like this is just a fantastic. This is just great storytelling, man. It's great storytelling, great television, great acting. It's just so good, man. I
that
don't care
shit
what this is.
perfectly placed flashbacks. Like that's why I love that she didn't spend too much time on the beginning. Like before they went
Because
in,
there's so
before they
much.
got
Because
in
you don't
trouble.
need
Yeah,
to waste time with that.
yeah,
Like you have so much more to do. You have so much more to do. And to be honest with you, you said you're happy that they didn't spend too much time in the beginning. I'm just impressed that she managed to stay so focused with every episode. I'd be jumping everywhere. There's so much story to tell. You know what I mean? She sets up all of the stuff so well. And I think what's so cool is that this 4-part miniseries, right, is flashbacking into stuff that we saw in the first 2 episodes or first 3 episodes by the
yeah,
4th episode.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So the flashback is already a bulk of stuff that we've already seen, and it just reminds us of, oh, this has been here this whole time. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's so cool about the show. It uses very few flashbacks that don't take place within the show itself.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because by the end of it, the whole show is flashback, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's get to the episode 4.
I mean, the end of episode 3 for the most part is the big question everybody's been asking. It's about where's Corey? Where's
Yeah,
Corey been? Because we've seen all of them except for Corey. And I believe at one point, Corey's mother is trying to get help from somebody else. She's trying to build up a case. She's trying to fight it. But everybody's sons are at home. Everybody's happy. Like, why would they try and help out Corey and incite something that could cause more issues when their kids are home? You know what I mean?
yeah,
And that shows how isolated and alone she is. And they play back to the end of episode 2 at the beginning of episode 4, which is Corey finding out that he's been arrested for a crime that he wouldn't have even been involved in if he didn't show up that day, if he didn't show up to support his friend. And
yeah,
he's screaming. They have to pull him away. He's screaming.
yeah. And you want to hate his mother for keeping for like you want to hate Yusuf's mother for keeping Corey away from Yusuf as far as writing them letters and stuff like that. But you kind of understand her situation due to what they show, like her having a hard time keeping jobs and stuff. So, like,
Yeah.
so you don't really hate anybody except for like I guess
But
the
to be
cops.
fair, like the way this mother looks at it is kind of the sort of mentality most people are trying to have, where it's like,
yeah,
I don't have, I'm not in this position to be the good Samaritan right now. I gotta save my son. If I have
yeah,
to throw all of you into prison so this guy has 1% of being free, then I gotta do it. You know what I mean? Because if you really think about it, sounds terrible, right? This sounds so terrible. If if 4 of them got arrested and her son got away, and he's 10, 8, 9 years removed from them being arrested, he'd forget. Not completely, but he'd be able to move on with his life. He would have done
yeah,
so. He would have had a childhood. He would have had an adolescence. You know what I mean? And I feel like in the great, what's it called, perspective of his mother, she's like, I've lived up until adulthood. I got to have you. You're gonna lose a bulk of that just by being here, and I can't even imagine that because she looks at something in a way that maybe a kid won't. She's like, I don't need to be good right now. I need to just live. I need to survive. I need to
yeah.
go. I need to go home.
I did like what she said about she mentioned when she was talking to Corey's mother, or Yusuf mom was talking to Corey mom. She was like, what did she say? She was like, I'm
His case is not like yours or something like that. She's
well,
trying to
not
separate the cases.
well, not that, not I was like when she was talking about how she's not trying to accommodate them while they're in there. She's trying to plan for when they get out. As far as the whole writing the letter thing, like she's not trying to waste time on trying to give them, I guess, snacks in prison or trying to do anything to accommodate them while they're in there. I mean, she was doing some of those things, but she was more focused on trying to get them out, and she didn't want to hear anything about writing letters to each other and shit like that. So I thought that was interesting.
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely.
But yeah, let's go on to the best episode of the.
Yeah, which is the way everything should be. The lost episode
yeah.
should. But sadly, that isn't always the case. But it is for this show. And I think the best thing to say is this episode's kind of miserable, but like not in a way where it's like, oh look, I told you guys, struggle media got you again. No, this is a sad episode because it's completely unfiltered in its approach to what happened to this man. But it also doesn't sacrifice his optimism. It shows how it shows so much, and I'll go for it slowly. So the beginning of the episode is him pretty much being checked by the prison guard that's going to be around for the first sort of third of the episode. He's telling everybody to strip. He's telling for them to lift their balls up so he can inspect them. And it's kind of
Yeah.
that sort of the whole thing in prison where it's like nothing is sacred. You basically are owned like by these people. You're like cattle now.
There
You know what I'm
was
saying?
there was a lot of there was a lot of homosexual tension. Cause every time he asks, you know what I'm talking about. I thought he was trying to proposition him to suck his dick or something. That kind of threw me off.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
mean, same thing happened when those two dudes showed up to whoop his ass. I was like, did they
yeah,
put him in the room
yeah,
to
the
okay?
rape him. So
Yeah, I was
yeah,
confused. I was like,
yeah, what's going
but
on? Yeah.
but yeah, I think the whole thing was really interesting. I was kind of conflicted for a lot of that episode too. I was like, is that like a white savior situation going on here as well? Like we'll get to that later on. But yeah, what happens is that this seems to be. I think he was a light skinned warden. The dude was light skinned black, right? He wasn't white.
The first one that was like helping him get his ass beat.
Yeah, I think
I,
I remember
yeah,
him
he
being
kind of
like
he
light
kind of
skinned.
looked like he had something in him. So I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's just go with light skin. So this light skinned dude that was a prison guard and stuff, he lets the dude know first and foremost, let me know if you can do anything for me. And Corey doesn't understand. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, let me know if you can do anything. And he's like, what do you mean? What can I do? He's like, you'll know. And then what happens is that you think that the prison is going to get him and the office is actively going to save him, but no, that dude is pretty much the kingpin of prison. What happens is that what he says goes, and if you're not doing anything for him, he's gonna get you. He's gonna give you a real hard time in prison. So Corey pretty much gets his ass beat every single day. He almost like, to be honest, they do this great job where his first night in the cell, right, feels
Yeah.
almost like a night in like Arkham Asylum, with how scary and unhinged and weird and uncomfortable and twisted the place is. He can't even sleep in his own bed because there's a rat there, and it's grim, it's disgusting. They do such a good job with like kind of building the atmosphere of prison. You see him have his first meals, you see how cowardly and uncomfortable and how he doesn't feel like he belongs. He gets these weird glares by two people that look uncomfortable. You don't know whether it's a sexual or aggressive one.
Yeah.
And then what ends up happening is that the guard stuffs them in a room to watch TV and stuff. You think he's making a friend. They use that moment where they're like, oh yeah, he's making a friend. Look, he's
Yeah.
made a friend. Everything's gonna go good. Everybody leaves the room. He gets his ass beat with the officer locking him
Yeah.
in that
Yeah.
bitch.
That shit
And that's when they
fucked
kind
up.
of established the dynamic of prison vet and vet too. Because the dynamic of prison is everybody's worried about the prisoners and what they'll do to you. It's more about the guard and what they'll make the prisoners do to you, what they'll let fly.
Yeah,
That's the
what
thing
they'll
you should
allow.
get from.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's kind of what's been happening throughout this entire episode is him kind of meeting different guards and meeting different prisoners and seeing how that turns out. And yeah, Corey didn't find faith. Corey didn't find what's called a religious group to help him. He didn't necessarily have his mother always helping him because it's expensive for her to show up at the island they have. They have it
Yo,
on
yeah,
Rikers, right?
yeah, and again, they kept bringing up, the money, the issue of being poor, and how that affected their whole situation. Because I mean, if they weren't as poor as they were, they probably wouldn't have ended up in a situation to begin with. As far as
Yeah, yeah.
the kids wouldn't have been left alone because the mother would have had more free time. They wouldn't have to work. So they again bring that right back around, and they kind of tell a complete story and like how all these different things, the economic standing, their skin color, like all these. I guess their gender too, as far as being black males, like all they bring all
Oh
this stuff
man.
around. Yeah, so
One other thing that we didn't even mention that's gonna like this is gonna blow your mind when I mention this. You're gonna be like, oh yeah, this show did do that. That's your fine. I'm about to say right now. So what happens is the whole thing with Corey, and part of the reason he got arrested was not just because he was there that day with his friend, was that he couldn't even read the shit they put in front of him because he wasn't going to school. They talk about the education system too.
oh
They
yeah,
talk about how you
yes.
know what I'm saying? They talk about how he can't even show up to school anymore because they keep threatening him and stuff like that. Like there are people actively stopping him from going to school out of fear and stuff. And then that's led this guy that lives in like a first world country to not even be able to read properly. He can barely speak properly. You know what I mean? Dude can barely speak, barely read. You know what I mean? And then the first thing they do, stuff that dude into prison and shit like that. And oh my god, that shit is crazy, man. Like they have the whole thing where he keeps getting beat up, and then he tries to ask the nurse in the infirmary, like, help me, help me, help me out. And then
Yes.
she sees, and in
The
the shadows you see
hopelessness.
the dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in the shadows you see that nigga looking at him, like just watching because he knows what's happening. He's like, and then like I think what happens is he catches on. He goes to like the retail area where like people like your family can send you money and stuff to get you things, and he gives the dude a chocolate bar, and he says something like I can't remember what he said. He says something like, "Next time they hit you, don't go to the infirmary. Go to solitary because infirmary's for
Yeah.
snitches," or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And then what happens is that everybody's so confused. Like this big fat officer shows up and he's like, "Oh yeah, we gotta get you to the infirmary." And he's like, "No, we're not going to the infirmary. Take me to solitary." And I'm like, "Oh shit, that's some G shit, man."
Yeah, and also
And then
yeah,
it's
yeah, cause let me let me wait. Was that the like? Cause
what?
what happened after the candy bars? Like he gave him the candy bars, and when was the next time
Oh
he
yeah,
got beat
yeah.
up? Like
I
was
mean,
it still in that same prison, or did he get a transfer?
well, I think that was the piece of information he gave him. I think what happened was he asked his mother if he could get more money, right? And I think they both know she doesn't have more money to give him. But the one time she did give him money, he uses it to give him chocolate. And then he asks him something like, "So are we good?" And he says, "For
Yeah,
now." And he's like, "But not forever, right?" And he's like, "Yeah." And pretty much the idea is that they're gonna come back and beat him if he doesn't keep giving this chocolate. That chocolate holds him up for
yeah,
the shit is good. You know what I mean? And I think the idea is that he learns to survive. Like the whole thing, like you see how in solitary his whole shit is building up. He's got books, he's working out, he has the chocolate. He's kind of figured it out a little bit, you
yeah.
know. And
And then the flashback.
and that
Yeah,
that
not a
shit is so
flashback,
fire,
but
man.
a time skip. I'm sorry.
The way that they just film the whole Corey episode is so engaging. It's like, damn, like this dude is slowly figuring stuff out, but as soon as he feels like he figures something out, the climate changes, the rules change, the person that he has to
Yeah,
adhere to changes. The
yeah,
moment he's on absolute edge, the moment that he's given chocolate just to save his life and he's stuck in solitary, he meets a god that's actually pretty nice to him. He calls him kid. And there's this whole idea of this dude was 16 when he was sent straight to prison for a crime he didn't commit while he's trying to help his friend.
yeah,
And then out of nowhere, right? Everybody's kind of been treating him not only like a man, but an animal. They call them animals. The cops call them
yeah,
animals routinely.
yeah,
You see what I'm saying? And then this one dude shows up and he's like, "Hey, how you doing, kid?" He asks him how his day is. He brings him stuff, you know what I mean? Stuff to read, stuff to eat. He even got him a job as a janitor, you know what I'm saying, to try and clean up and stuff. Just giving him some responsibility, something to do, something to keep him busy.
Also,
Right? He even
also,
tries to get him to read it.
also, it brings up the question, like when you're a sex offender, you go in there. There's a lot of animosity towards you from other prisoners, and
Yeah.
being that he got put in there for allegedly raping a white woman, you know the white supremacists in the prison was fucking him up too. Like that's
Yeah, in the
so
wash
yeah,
in the wash
in the
that was crazy.
washroom.
And that's how he ended up in solitary, remember?
Yeah,
When they beat him up the second time and then they were like, "Yeah, put me in solitary." Oh, that's fine. But yeah, yeah, the white dude helps him out, the white guard. He's like, "You know what? I'm gonna give you the janitor role." And there's the whole thing of like him being stripped down to like none of his clothes, sweating his ass off in solitary because the air conditioner doesn't work. And then just all of that, just they just man, like me describing it does this episode a complete disservice, just how good it
yeah.
is and
You gotta watch
how
this shit.
meticulously it's so good. It's one of the best episodes of TV I've seen. I can comfortably say that. It's really good.
Yeah, he kind of
And
starts to hallucinate a bit. He starts seeing people from his past, yeah,
family.
family and
Yeah,
stuff.
he
Yeah,
starts seeing family. And like to be honest, they do such a good job with the Corey character. They start seeing there's this whole thing where they don't explicitly mention it, but then there's like he visits his mother one time and he talks to her and and I think he talks about his brother and we don't necessarily know anything about his brother. We were confused and I was like, is this a bad piece of writing? Is this when they introduced the magical character but we just didn't see in the beginning of the they just
yeah,
magically mentioned something? I was like, why would I ever assume that about a show that's been this good up until this point? And the reason they never showed the brother is because when we get to the flashback, we found out that the brother is trans. You see what I'm saying? His brother is a trans man, and the reason that the
Trans
conversation
woman.
was so awkward. Yeah, I mean, trans man, because the idea is that when you say trans man or woman, it's what you identify as now. You know what
Yeah,
I
he
mean?
a woman now.
Like,
Yeah.
no, in the first flashback, his brother was a trans man. You don't remember that? There was two flashbacks.
No, he wasn't he was transitioning to a woman, right? Yeah, he's trans woman. Yeah. You
Hold on,
fuck.
was that the same sibling? I thought he had two siblings.
No. He had they only showed one sibling, one brother. That was
Wait, that was the same sibling?
yeah, it's trans woman. Yeah.
Wow, I thought that when they said Marcy, they meant the same sibling because I thought they casted. Wow, I thought they casted a woman to play his brother, and they were being like, this is one of his brothers, and that's his trans brother now because he's a trans man.
Well, see,
I thought they had
they
another.
well they because I guess at that time they didn't have the proname thing, the pronoun game right, so they kept calling her by his male name. I'm fucking up to it.
Oh, I had no
Yeah.
idea because
So
that's the thing. Like
yeah.
like, I think it's good to be clear. Let's be clear because for me, when I was watching the episode, I thought that what's his name? Corey had two siblings. I thought both of them ended up being trans, and I thought that was the whole conflict of the episode. That this mother failed to raise her kids. One of them ends up in prison, and two of them are trans and have left home. I thought that was the idea. You know what I mean? But apparently, he's only had one sibling, and that sibling was trans, and
No, wait,
they weren't.
he has multiple siblings, but we don't ever see the other ones. The other ones will never appear. But the one we do see is the trans woman, and they keep referring to her by the male name. And, that she was born as a male, so they keep calling
Okay,
her.
that makes sense. That makes sense.
What's
Yeah.
the male name? I forgot. I know that. It's,
I can't remember, but like the
but
mother
yeah,
used it almost as a derogatory way where she
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah, and that's probably where the confusion comes from. But yeah,
yeah, and I think that's another really strong part of the what's it called showing the mother's relationship with Corey even where it's like Corey's mother was a drug addict, a horrible parent, and kind of did everything to distance herself from her children. But at the same time, on some fundamental level, she cared, but her
yeah,
care went into the wrong direction.
yeah. She
And I
was a
think
drug
and I
dealer
think that's
too.
kind of
Yeah,
yeah, and I thought that was just so strong, man, because it's like his mother's trying. His mother is trying. She's awful, but she's trying and she gets better. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like she doesn't necessarily have a clearly defined arc, but you kind of see the person she was and the person she eventually became and how life moved forward. You know what I mean? And how
yeah,
through her son and through her daughter, she kind of had to learn like how terrible things can go down and how fragile life is. And Corey breaking down in prison when even the officers say, "Oh yeah, your brother is dead," and it's like he he in his head doesn't feel like he has a brother. You know what I mean? It's like that's nobody's giving what's it called Marcy the respect she deserves, even up until this point. You know what I mean? Not his mother, not the police officers. It's just him, just there.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
One of the best parts about that scene was the dialogue. When the I guess the warden was like uh the wait, well he was trying to he was like, let me call my mom after he found out that his brother had died, and
Yeah.
the warden and the guard was like, relax, we thinking about you right now, and he kind of breaks down. It's like, y'all thinking about me, y'all thinking about me, like I've been in here this whole time and nobody was helping me, like that. That was a powerful scene, and then he's
That,
crying over the
that shit.
that's and they kind of built that relationship between him and the guard because the guard kind of
Yeah.
hugs him at that moment, and you see Marcy in the corner right there looking like that shit was beautiful. All of that shit, yeah, that whole scene was great.
I think I think a scene we need to like mention just for setup is there's a scene where he's been given the janitor role in the prison, right?
Yeah,
And he's cleaning up and he's watching TV, and there's this one dude that's been left behind watching TV. His name's Reyes, right?
yeah.
Reyes is sitting there watching TV, and I think it's the part where they point out that something's happened. I think it might be the scene where they say that 9/11's happened, but it's probably not that scene. Either way, they're watching TV and he's cleaning
No,
up.
that's later
He wants
on.
to
That's later on.
Okay.
Yeah,
He wants to play the TV louder, but the other dude's like, nah, it's loud enough. But he can't hear it from the other room while he cleans. So what happens is hyper masculine prison shit. He swing like
yeah.
he puts it up anyway. And then what ends up happening is that Reyes gets angry and swings at this nigga or something like that. And they end up fighting. And then like obviously the dude that gave him the job to begin with is like mad. He's like, what the hell is this, man? And he ends up back in solitary, where he's been living this entire time.
Also,
And
before even that though, he got to meet with the, what do they call them people? Fuck.
oh yeah, the parole the parole
Yeah, the
meetings and stuff.
parole meetings, and he has to admit that he raped that woman, and he doesn't want to admit that because admitting that got him in prison in the first place, and
Yeah.
and the only way that he can continue and to even attempt to get a parole is to admit that he's guilty, and he just refused to do that
That was
despite
that
struggling.
was
Yeah.
that was the most fire shit to me. Where he just let the dude's just like, you got your parole me. He's like, I'm good. I was like, you're good. Yeah, nigga, I'm good.
Yo,
It's like, what difference? And he's hitting the push-ups like, this nigga real, man. It's like that.
the shit was crazy because it got worse because you think it's going good because he got the warden helping him out. I mean, not the warden, but the guard helping him out, giving him like chia pets and shit like that. And
Yeah.
and he asks for
Mr. TT offense.
yeah, the chia pets and shit. And he asked for like a transfer, and the guard tells him like, "Hey man, I mean, I can give you a transfer, but it might take a year. Also, there's no telling where they'll send you. They might send you further away."
Farther away, yeah.
And they happen to send his ass further away, so he's still in the same situation he's been in the first place. Because he wants to see his mother so bad. That's why he wants to transfer. Yeah.
Yeah, because his mother can't make it to Rikers Island every single time. Like she finds it hard enough as it is to get work where she's at, and she has to get a day off to where she can have enough money to get her to Rikers Island to visit her son for like what, like less than an hour? Is it like how long are the meetings? Like
I don't know how long the
ridiculous.
meetings are, but yes.
Them shits, they look short as hell. They have one inspirational quote per interaction, man.
Yeah, they do it such a great, and they brought up the money again with the phone call. They talked about that in I think the third episode, the phone calls, how much they cost. So yeah.
They did such a good job with that with the Raymond one. Not to go back to that, but the whole Raymond thing where like they kind of show him grow through the phone calls, and it's just that shit fire.
Yo, this shit deserves some awards, man.
Give it awards, man. Damn it. But yeah, I mean, let's get back to the Corey episode. He gets transferred to this prison, and like I mentioned at the beginning of this sort of synopsis and stuff. Each prison has its own rules, and like kind of as soon as he gets comfortable in the place that he's at, like they pull the rug underneath him and the rules change. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And what happens is that apparently when he found out he's being transferred there, right? There's actually a black guard that personally has a vendetta against him and wants to make it 100% sure that there's no celebrities in this prison. You know what I mean? Nobody gets treated special because of how high profile that case is. And how many people know them and how big that like they're promoting all the death penalty for them or whatever, right?
Yeah.
All that crazy. And he gets back to being treated potentially worse than he was when he first entered Rikers.
And you feel for him so much, man. Just like you think it's gonna get good, it just gets worse and it just breaks you.
And he tries the same rules. He's like, "Oh, send me to solitary," and it doesn't help, man. You know what I mean? It just doesn't help. It's bad, and no one's looking out for him. Yeah.
Yeah, and he gets these hallucinations again. He starts thinking about people from the past, people that he knew outside, and he has this flashback about him like being a kid. Had he stayed with his girl and ate dinner or whatnot, at the little restaurant, he wouldn't have gotten to.
If he just didn't go,
yeah.
If he just stayed, man, and it's like. Oh my god! And he just kind of repeats the words stuff. Like he's like, "I'm staying. I'm not gonna go," or something like that. It's just like dude, the actor is so good, you believe it. Every second of it, you just believe that shit and you feel it. You're like, damn, man, this shit is difficult. This shit's hard, man. You know what I mean?
And the shit is so
And
like, shit is so good because when he kept saying I'm staying, I was thinking about the mistake he made by getting the transfer, and then that whole thing linked with the parole thing, like him staying in solitary confinement. Like it's so many
how do you
things.
maintain hope? How do you
Yeah,
maintain hope? It's so crazy. And here's the thing, right? One thing I always try and consider with this type of stuff is that a biopic structures the story of someone's life in a way where it can be a TV show or a movie, right? It definitely does these massive time skips. But the thing to always remember is every day was a day these people had to live. You know what I mean?
yes, yeah,
Every phase of their life that you get episode to episode, that's actually 3 to 4 years, maybe even 5 to 10 years of that real life, the actual life, man.
and
You know what I
the
mean?
thing is with this you feel it. Like with some other shows you might not feel it, but with this you really feel the time. Like he looks
Yeah, yeah,
beaten and
absolutely.
broken throughout the entire thing. And they
Yeah.
kind of trick us too, because they make us believe he hasn't seen his mother in an extremely long time, because he got that transfer and he's out further, so he starts to hallucinate about his mother. And I'm thinking like, is she dead? I was anticipating her being dead because because of the hallucinations and him seeing her when she's not
Wouldn't that
really
be some
there.
shit, man?
Yeah. And you've already like this was an emotional episode. Like you cried. People like I cried on this episode. I shed a tear too.
Yeah,
Uh,
I should. Yeah, it was bad for me too, man. I think the moment. Can I get to the end,
yeah.
like the pretty much the end of the episode, or is there like anything else left that I'm missing out?
Um, the only other part is that Reyes is the dude that committed the crime. The dude that he fought.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Oh, dude, that's the big one. So what ends up happening is once he's gone to this new prison, right, the one that's even farther away, Reyes also seems to be there for some reason. And one of their interactions, the first interaction they have in years, is Reyes seems to have this level of faith. You know, this level of faith in something more spiritual that Corey seems to be lacking, right? He talks to him, he checks is everything good. He's like, is everything good? You know what I mean? You remember me from that one day where we fought, and he apologized. He says sorry. And you're like, okay, this guy's apologizing for that fight that he had that one time. But like, there's more weight to it. He's apologizing for way more than that one thing that happened that one day. And then like Corey's like, hold up a second. So you found faith and you want to convert me now. That's what this is. You don't really care about what happened. And I'm over here on edge and you want to just turn me into some spiritual, right? And he walks away. But the real thing
Yeah.
that happens is that Reyes was also there that day. He was arrested for a number of other cases that weren't connected back to this one case that shares every similarity with all of his cases. So after finding faith, something that almost seems like the most ludicrous thing ever, but this is actually how it happened.
Yeah.
Reyes admits it. Years later, Reyes admits it. He shows up, he feels bad, he feels guilty, and admits that he did all that stuff, and he takes all charges.
Which
But
which
at that point,
one
it's
thing that
crazy. Right?
one thing that got me on Twitter was somebody wrote like, it was like, man, it's a damn shame that it took the rapist. The rapist had more compassion than than the cops,
That's
the prosecutors,
that's facts.
the whole
Yo,
justice
think about
system.
this.
Yeah.
Think of this for a second. It wasn't the justice system that figured it out. It was a literal rapist had to find faith. A little rapist had
Yes.
to find faith. A rapist
That's
had to
how
find
bad the
faith
system is.
and admit that he did it. And they still said, nah, man, it can't be like that. You know what I mean? You're just lying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
They
like,
they they
oh
they
my
they
god.
treated him funny about that truth. It's like he's literally telling you. None of these kids have actually really admitted to this, and they're still holding their ground. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I
which
thought
which,
that
which
was just
confused me because the whole big thing about episode 2 is that the only reason I think they got even put in there is because they admitted on tape, because there wasn't any evidence. They had a sock with some DNA with some semen in it, but that didn't match any of the kids, and
it didn't match any of
yeah.
them.
So
And then it matched races when they
yeah,
went and checked it.
yeah,
And also, it's like the case that they were charging the kids for. They were almost exactly. They were. It was the exact same situation with every other case that Reyes was charged for anyway.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
So this
And
dude
I
went
guess it
on to
makes
rape
sense.
more
Like,
people.
yeah,
So
dude,
yeah,
Race was gonna be Race was gonna be in prison forever
yeah,
anyway.
he
Like
had
taking
life.
one more case
Yeah,
out of good conscience was like he had to. You
yeah,
know what I mean? Which is crazy. I mean, needless to say, the moment where his mother called him, and I'm talking about Corey, right? The moment Corey's mother called him and then said, "Somebody really cares about you. Someone's watching out for you." And he's like, "What do you mean?" He said, "The what's it called? The person that did it admitted it." And I'm like,
yeah.
"Bruh, that broke me. That was the moment that destroyed me, man. I was like,
Yo,
fuck,
this
there's hope."
if you're not familiar with the case, this is an extremely good film to watch, man. Like, cause you go in there
I
not
mean,
knowing
yeah.
anything, so yeah,
I don't even think this is really. It doesn't even feel like a TV show slash miniseries in the way that it is. It really does feel like a 4 hour movie sectioned off of the best cutoff points. It
yeah,
separates itself at the best points to be separate, and it's such a fantastic piece of media. Like we're gonna talk about more of the specifics in terms of what we like about the most and what really got us about it and what our rating and stuff is. But if it isn't obvious already, this is a piece of media I feel like everybody should watch, regardless of how you feel about quote unquote struggle media and like, things that seek to put the black man down or blah 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 blah. Like this is great. This is great media right here.
yeah. This is like this is her best work thus far. It's the best
Yeah,
thing she's ever
I
done.
agree. I and she's done other good stuff. So let's not make it like this is the first good thing she's done off the ring. She just happens to have made something fantastic now that surpasses everything she did before.
She needs to keep doing it. I don't. You said she was doing some other shit. Like, drop that shit. Do this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's doing a DC movie next. She's
Oh
doing a
my
New
god.
Gods movie with like Dark Side and like Mr. Miracle and Big Barda, and I'm like, I want to see that movie. But like,
Uh,
if like I always say this to people, if there's an independent filmmaker, independent writer that's doing cool and interesting things by themselves, I don't need you to do the studio job. I don't need you to make these Happy Meals, damn it. I don't need you to direct Star Wars. I want you to just make the thing that you're doing independent.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. But yeah,
so let somebody else make the Happy Meals, damn it.
yeah, let's finish this shit off. Uh, I think he left off at the part where his mother called him and was saying somebody was watching over you.
Yeah, so his mother calls him, and Corey's freed, man. Corey is free, and what happens? I think you got to finish this because you've seen it twice, and I think you'll do the ending with more clarity.
So what happens? So basically, there's like a new person on the case. And it's the woman, because in the first episode, when Linda was first trying to build the case against these boys, there was somebody there. I don't know. I forgot her title, her position, but she was in disagreement
She was
with
the
the
attorney. She was the one that was
yeah.
defending the victim, right?
No. There was not her. There was another woman there that wasn't there for too long. Like she was like there right at the beginning.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know who you're talking about. The one that was fighting them, taking the case to begin with, right?
Yeah, she was like, "This is a stupid case," and she was like, "Good luck," because she didn't think that.
Oh yeah, she went for the higher ups, and the dude was like, "You got to decide between yourselves," and she ended up convincing everybody that they had to take these boys in, right?
Yeah. That's Linda. Yeah. So and the other woman, she ended up, I guess she ended up helping them get out because they got they pulled DNA from him and it matched, the sock. I mean, I said DNA matched the sock. I mean, yeah. So yeah, all of that stuff matched out. So they ended up allowing them that ended up allowing them to get out. And Raymond was back. Raymond was still in there because he had went back because of the drug dealing, and that allowed him to get
Yeah,
out too. So they both, Raymond and Corey, got out.
and you gotta realize, like for the most part, Raymond was probably gonna be there in life again, because you gotta think about the sentence and stuff. What happened was that not only were they freed to go where they want, there was this whole curfew thing and previous conviction type thing where like if if you commit any other crime after the crime you quote unquote committed before, right?
Yeah,
Or even if you're at a particular period in time, I think it was like if you're past midnight or even 9 p.m. or some crazy number like that, they'll take you back. They'll probably take you back and lock you in for life. You're not coming out.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's other than that was pretty much they did a press conference where they all came together.
Yeah, Yeah,
I'm trying to
yeah.
remember if there's
And
anything
and
else.
I'll say the final ending was Corey actually goes to the place that he was supposed to stay at before he went to Central Park, and he eats a meal because he was hungry.
Ah,
And
you're right. Yeah, yeah,
that shit was fire. And then we get the sort of end credit where we get to see the kids, the actors for the kids, and as they lift their heads, it transitions into the actual people that had to do the years, like the adult actors, but the actual
yeah,
what's it called, the actual
yeah. The
convicts, like the
real
actual
people.
Central Park
Yeah,
Five. Yeah, and that shit was fire. Yeah.
that's pretty much it.
So
Yeah.
yeah, Bush, what do you think of this show? Like, do you think people should watch it? Who do you recommend it for? Just a bunch of the just house cleaning type stuff. Just out of
I
curiosity.
mean, definitely, I would recommend it to people that don't mind seeing these quote unquote struggle films. I mean, and people that aren't really familiar with the case and just heard about it through conversations currently going on, you should definitely check it out. I mean, and also just people that like good filmmaking. If you just like watching good TV series, miniseries, you don't got nothing else to watch, just go ahead and watch this. Go ahead and binge it, man. It's a good series. I recommend it. I mean, that's pretty much it. Like everybody should be trying to see this. Like if you even if you just like Oscar type films, this is like a perfect Oscar type film. Like it has all the it checks all the marks. It got
Yeah,
LGBT shit in it. It got struggle in it. It checks everything,
yeah.
and they do it well. So
Everything that our audience hates, man. It's great.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was I was gonna say this. I would actually recommend this to people that when I said Jordan, when Robin Pattinson was casted as Batman, the people that said who would not like this. People that still talk about Twilight are not gonna like this. I feel like this is for people that very much care about indie movies and care about interpersonal stories and care about filmmaking and the craft of writing. Like if you like that Happy Meal shit I was talking about before, you know what I mean, and purely that Happy Meal shit, this is not gonna be for you. This for me, this is just strong storytelling, strong characterization, and people just walking at the top of their craft. Like this is just really, really good filmmaking.
That shit is
You know what I mean?
tight. Like no fat on this movie.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean,
Yeah.
and that's kind of the best way to put it. If you like schlocky garbage, and I know people that do like schlocky garbage won't even recognize it as schlocky garbage. So if you like things that doesn't put people at the forefront and focuses 99.9% on the spectacle, like an explosion or like the cool sparkly effect or the CGI or the big lizard fight or blah blah blah, blah. Like that's not what this is. This is very much about people. You have to find yourself being invested in people, and it takes you to a very real place. And depending on how comfortable you are being taken to a place like that, I'd be worried. You know what I mean? That's probably
Yeah.
my hot take. It's like if you cannot take real sad shit and knowing that it isn't just a fictional character but a person that had to live this out, then I'd say avoid.
Also, they got a lot of great actors in here. They got Vera Farmiga, Felicity Huffman, who got caught up in that college scandal shit. So this she played actually the villain. She played Linda Fairstein.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Also,
interesting.
we
Yeah,
got to shout out Jerome Jerome, man.
yeah.
Jerome
Corey.
Jerome is the guy that plays Corey, and the thing that's so cool about him is that this dude is fire. The reason I say that is because he's only 21. He's only 21. He played this character to a T, and he did a fantastic fucking job. And he's also one of the main characters in Moonlight, and he absolutely killed it in Moonlight as well. So
Was
I'm
he in
like, the fact
Moonlight?
that I have, yeah. If I'm correct, Jerome is the lover of Chiron in Moonlight.
Oh, he is. Oh, I did not.
Yeah,
Damn, this
he
is
was a
a
teenage. I think he was a teenage version. Yeah,
shit. This is a pretty good actor. Looking up, looking
Gerard,
back. Yeah.
he's fire. He's fire. He's great. And like I said, he's only 21, man. Like that's crazy young, and he's a big talent. Like I don't know. I always feel like stuff like this needs to be spotlighted. Like I'm happy. I'm happy for him.
But yeah,
Yeah.
also you got your Michael Kenneth Williams, Boardwalk Empire, The Wire, Niecy Nash in this, John Leguizamo. So yeah, they got some talent. Everybody does a good job. Like I can't even think of like any bad actors. The
Yeah.
kids do a great job. Like all, especially
No, not one bad actor.
we talk about how good Corey did. The other kid, Ashanti Black, the kid that played Kevin in the first episode. Yo, he did a great
Oh
job
yeah,
in
he
the
was
first
amazing.
episode.
He was
Yeah,
amazing. He was even better than Idol actor.
yeah. It's like
And
damn.
not to discredit him,
Yeah.
also I think the guy that plays Raymond in the Time Skip is fire too.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
He was good.
Yeah, they all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shit.
And I don't know. I think this whole show is so good. Yeah, I'm looking at this right now. I'm looking at how Jerome Jerome is talking about how playing Corey Wise was real difficult too. Like it's detailing how like that affected his mental health, and it's always really interesting because to think of playing a character that spends most of his time on screen in solitary confinement and having to put yourself in a place where you have to embody someone that just spends that much time by themselves
Yeah.
is it must be a heavy burden.
Oh
But
yeah.
to end off the review in a kind of tight way, I'm curious what your rating is. It doesn't have to be specific, but I'm kind of curious where you put this movie.
That
I mean,
shit. This shit get a
let
10,
me see.
man. They got a 10. I
Yeah,
mean, yeah. I mean, I just like this film, man. I know a lot of people will be
I'll
like,
give
I'll
this.
give it a or nah, it's not perfect. Like just saying
No,
it's
no,
not.
no,
It's just
nigga,
10,
no. This is a 10. Like, if I'm saying this is the best thing Ava DuVernay has made, I'm putting this at 10.